What's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick on the Power. So I wanted to make a video about the 1973 Mr. Olympia competition. Now, the reason I wanted to make a video about the 1973 Olympia is because this is the year that the rivalry between Arnold and Sergio Oliva came to an end. So up until 1973, Arnold and Schwarzenegger were pretty consistent rivals, and they were going head-to-head consistently every year. But 73 would be the first year that they wouldn't go head-to-head at the Olympia, and they wouldn't go head-to-head again from that point forward. So the placings of the 1973 Mr. Olympia were as follows. Serge Nubret got third place, Franco Columbu got second, and Arnold Schwarzenegger got fourth. And this will be Arnold Schwarzenegger's fourth consecutive Mr. Olympia win, and that broke Sergio Oliva's previous record of 3. Now, Sergio was originally scheduled to compete at this year's Olympia, but he was banned from competing by the IFBB for appearing in the 1972 WBBG Mr. Galaxy contest. And I'm going to get to that in a minute and elaborate on that whole situation. But this is not the first time Sergio Oliva was banned from competing. If you guys remember the 1971 Mr. Olympia a couple years prior, that was the first year that the IFBB started their non-sanctioned policy, and Sergio was banned from that competition for competing in the NABBA Mr. Universe. So there's a couple things playing into Sergio not being allowed to compete, and a lot of people look back throughout history and say, well, you know, maybe Joe Weider was a little racist, maybe he had it in for Sergio, and maybe he put these rules in place specifically to prevent Arnold from being beaten by Sergio, and he wanted to hold Sergio back from winning all these Olympias. And there's a lot of conspiracy theorists out there that believe that was the case and that Joe Weider did have it in for Sergio, and Sergio was kind of a marked man because Joe wanted Arnold to be the new poster boy of bodybuilding, and he was pushing Arnold so hard. And he didn't want Sergio to be a threat to Arnold's flawless little reign that he was going to have for the next couple of years and then come back in 1980 and win again. So a lot of people think that they kind of had it in for Sergio. So earlier in the video, I referenced something called the Tijuana incident. So this is an incident that happened. It was at a competition called the Mr. International Azteca competition. This is a competition that Sergio Oliva was competing in, and Arnold Schwarzenegger and Joe Weider were in the audience watching. So basically, there was no other bodybuilders that were even in the same ballpark as Sergio competing in this competition, and he basically blew them all away. So Schwarzenegger and Weider were in the audience. And from the stage, Sergio called out Arnold Schwarzenegger and said he wanted to pose down on stage between the two of them, and he wanted Arnold to come on stage and have some real competition. So Weider was telling Arnold to ignore him and not to go up there. So Arnold never ended up going on stage, but eventually Franco Columbu ended up accepting Sergio's invitation. Franco got on stage and competed against him. And the promoter of the show raised both their arms and declared the competition a draw. So shortly after this competition, this was when Sergio was banned from competing in the 1973 Olympia. So the reason they actually stated was that it was because of this Mr. Galaxy contest, which they claimed was only a couple days before this Mr. International Azteca competition, where Sergio was calling out Arnold. But actually that Mr. Galaxy was over a year prior to this incident. So Joe Weider had plenty of time to disqualify Sergio from the 1973 Olympia between 72 when he competed in the Galaxy and then this show in Tijuana. So they kind of use that as an excuse, but really the real reason was Joe Weider was pissed off that Sergio was calling out Arnold, combined with the fact that this was at a rival promoter's organization. So this was Dan Laurie's organization, and this guy was a major rival to Weider, and there's all kinds of stuff that went on between the two of them. And I'm going to make some videos about that in the future between Dan Laurie, the promoter, and Joe Weider, the promoter. There's some good stories about that. But really, the real reason was they were pissed off that he was kind of taunting Arnold. He was taunting Joe Weider, pissed Joe Weider off, and then they banned him from the Olympia. So the 1973 Olympia is just another example of all these early Olympias where there was a whole bunch of politics involved and there's a whole bunch of crazy stuff going on. But really, if we get back to the actual Olympia itself, the main reason I wanted to make a video about it is the fact that Arnold Schwarzenegger really had, you know, arguably some of the best conditioning of his entire bodybuilding career at that year's Olympia. So some people say 1974 was the year Arnold was the biggest and most muscular. Then 1973 was the year he was the most jacked and shredded and ripped and had the best conditioning of his career. And if you look at some of these photos, I tend to agree with that. He had definitely sized down a little bit, but he looked tremendous. He looked very, very conditioned, very, very good. So 73, most conditioned. 74, his biggest, and arguably some people say that 71 was his best year. He had the best balance of size and conditioning. So 73 is a very important year in bodybuilding in terms of Arnold Schwarzenegger's career and in terms of Sergio Oliva getting screwed. So let me know in the comment section below what you guys think of Sergio Oliva getting screwed at the 1973 Olympia. Please give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Nick Strength and Power, signing out.